This is SEC Talk.
What is going on, everybody? Hope everybody's doing good today. I hope that intro right there wasn't too loud because it didn't click out when I wanted it to. Hope everybody's doing good today. Glad to have you guys here with us. We are going to jump straight into the show. We've got plenty to talk about this evening and getting into it. I'm here. I'm here on audio. I'm here on video. So if you guys are on YouTube, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Or if you're listening and want to watch on YouTube, make sure you jump over to YouTube, hit that subscribe button. For us, like the video. That just helps us to kind of grow in that way. On Twitter, at SEC Talk 20, that is up in the corner. If you are watching on YouTube, you'll be able to see it throughout the entire video. I generally don't take that down, so that way you guys have the ability to look and say, okay, I know where to go. Instead of just continuing to pop stuff up and down on the screen, I just leave it up there for you guys. I am holding. No Cody tonight. We should get Cody back next week. I believe we'll have him back next week, both audio and video, which will be nice to get that secondary opinion in there. It's always nice to get. I did get Cody's picks this week. Last week I didn't get his picks, so the numbers are extremely skewed on the weekly pick sheet because he just didn't turn in any picks last week, and I did, so the numbers are way off, which my numbers are a lot bigger anyways because I do extra picks in there. If you hear rumblings in the background, don't worry about it. It's just my dog deciding to run into a wall, evidently. But she's okay, so don't worry about that either. But anyways, you guys, again, Twitter at SEC Talk 20. YouTube, go and subscribe to all that. None of this stuff is popping up. You can see that the video is a lot different than it has been since we started this season, or the few episodes that we did do before Cody dropped out for a little while. And that's because my camera quit working. I don't know why. It quit working. I've been working on it for about 2 weeks to try to get it back up and going. Did finally get the mic up and going. Fingers crossed that it's actually working now. It's worked for the past couple of shows that I've done outside of this one and this one the last time that we did it, I think on the review episode. I think this is the first preview episode we've done in like 2 or 3 weeks. So glad to be back with you guys. Sorry that things have been the way that they have without, whether it's stuff acting up or just being busy. It's been kind of difficult to get to both shows in 1 week, but hey, I'm here. So I'm going to get it to you the best that I can. Unfortunately, right now, nothing is popping up on the screen, so none of the information, no stats, nothing that I normally have is in front of me. So everything that I'm going to talk to you about today is going to be straight off the dome. May or may not be very good. Nah, I'm just kidding. I'm not kidding about stuff not being in front of me. It's going to be good, is what I'm saying, because I'm going to talk to you and entertain you at least in some of the stats that are in my head. So could come out pretty funny, may not come out funny at all. But again, I appreciate you guys being here. Let's jump straight into it. All right, here we go. Starting things off, 12 o'clock kick. We're going to take it pretty simply. We're going to go through the games for this week. I'm going to go through the games that I can remember off the top of my head that are supposed to be being played around the rest of the country that are big games. And then, I guess I could do the top 25. I can't remember if it had dropped. I think it had dropped before we did the episode last time. Yeah, I think it was up here last time, so I shouldn't have to go through that again. But if this stuff will pop up on my screen, I'll have a lot more information to get to you guys. But that's pretty much it. We do have our picks. Again, I've got that graphic loaded in, so I will bring that up on the screen. In the meantime, I will go ahead and put up the top 25 that will be scrolling across the bottom of your screen if you are watching on YouTube. Again, I appreciate you guys watching. For you guys that are watching, because, again, that's just great, and we appreciate it as always. Let me get all this stuff set back where it was because it moved around a little bit on me. Sorry, I know you guys do not care in the slightest, and you won't even notice really anything changing on there, but there was a gap. Anyway, doesn't matter for you guys on YouTube. I know, boring watching me just click buttons and stuff. But that's what we're going to get to. We're going to get to a few of those games. All the games around the SEC, end everything off with the picks. Keep it short, sweet, and simple for you guys. Starting it off with that 12 o'clock slate, you do have Arkansas and Ole Miss. But Ole Miss, it's an Ole Miss. It's not a real game. Anyways, let me just get to it. Starting off real rocky here, real rusty, as if I hadn't done this thing at all. Arkansas is going to play Ole Miss in Oxford, Mississippi, on Saturday at 12 o'clock on ESPN. Back-to-back 12 o'clock kicks there for Arkansas. Both teams, like I was going to say before, being so rudely interrupted by my speech impediment, both teams coming off a loss. Ole Miss falling to Alabama last week, and Arkansas falling to Georgia, falling to the number 1 and the number 2 team in the country. Right now, you do have both of them ranked. Arkansas, I think, is still ranked like 13th, and if I remember correct, Ole Miss is still in the top 20 as well. So both teams, it's still a top 20 matchup in the country, and got a really good chance to be a good one. Arkansas, in previous weeks, offensively has looked really good. Defensively has also been in that same realm and taken down, at the time, ranked Texas A&M. At the time, a ranked Texas team who is also now back in the top 21. So that gets to continue to look like a quality win. Now, they fall very, very bad last week, like we talked about on the last episode, 37-0 to Georgia. That offense was nowhere to be found. Neither was the defense, because what Arkansas has done very well so far this year is stop the run, and Georgia ran for it almost 300 yards on them this past week. So that's not something. Look at here, my stats and stuff are starting to pop up. Hopefully it'll continue. It is Thursday that I record this. Again, you guys get it on Friday, so I'll kind of keep you in the loop on the Coastal Carolina game. You're not going to care about it when you're listening to this Friday, because guess what? You can just look and see what the final is. But right now, just before the half, Coastal is up on Arkansas State 17-0. So anyways, back to the Arkansas-Ole Miss game. Should be a really good game. Ole Miss, a 5.5-point favorite coming into this one. And again, we'll get to our picks later. But Ole Miss is 2-0 in the SEC. Arkansas has played 2 games in the SEC, because they beat Texas A&M and then they lost to Georgia. I guess that's just putting the ranking on here, what their rankings are in the East and in the West. So in the West, Arkansas is 0-1. I don't know why it's got it like this, because technically they're 1-1 in the SEC. Anyway, that doesn't matter. That stat's a little skewed there, but you know what it is. We know what it is. So anyways, back to the conversation at hand. Let's start with Arkansas. Arkansas, like I just talked about, fell. KJ Jefferson still looked a little bit banged up in this game, was not mobile against Georgia. Can he come back in this game and be effective again, not only with his legs in the pocket, scrambling, getting out of the pocket, but as well as with his arm? Can Arkansas get that spark back on offense after being dime last week against Georgia, against the number 1 defense in the country? We talked a little bit of stats about that, and we'll talk about it a little bit more once we get into the Georgia game coming up. But for Arkansas to win this game, especially on the road in Oxford, it's going to take KJ Jefferson being the difference in that game. And if he cannot, and if he is truly banged up enough to where he can't do it, you have to bring in Malik Hornsby and let him do it, because he did show sparks and signs of life in the few limited reps that he has played. When he came in that Texas A&M game, no, Arkansas didn't score anymore, but he was still able to somewhat move the ball. Not going to say he necessarily was moving it effectively, but he did somewhat move the ball. Over to Ole Miss. Lane Kiffin kind of boogered Ole Miss up at the start of this game. You go for it on 4th down multiple times in the first quarter in those first couple of drives. You're successful on part of them, but then the times that you weren't is when it mattered the most. Go for it on 4th and 2 and you get it. Go for it on 4th and 1, you get it. Go for it on 4th and goal, you don't get it. Momentum switches to Alabama. Alabama rolls from that point on. There's no slowing them down. Then you turn around and do it again on like your own 40 or 35. I don't even remember exactly what it was. But you fail at it then and give Alabama prime opportunity to score in your red zone, essentially, with how high-powered Alabama's offenses are. I expected that to be a very good game. Coastal Carolina just scored right before the half, make it 24-0. Anyways, moving on. I expected that to be a high-scoring game between both teams, just like it was last year. Knowing that both teams, maybe not as high-scoring, but knowing that both teams' defense is supposed to be a little bit better than it was last year. Alabama's defense showed up in this game. Ole Miss's did not. Ole Miss offense did start to show up later in that game, but it was much too late for that to matter. And Alabama still gave up a few touchdowns in that game. Again, it's kind of hard to justify saying, oh, well, Alabama's giving up a lot of points. Well, yeah, they give up 3 touchdowns in that, but you're also talking about, at the time, one of the top offenses in the country, especially through the air, with Matt Corral, who's been doing a really good job. It's going to be a big game, a very, very big game, and I'm looking forward to it. Again, that's at 12 o'clock on ESPN. That's going to be one to keep your eye on for sure. Top 25 matchup in the SEC. And again, 2 teams that should be really mad after last week losing. Both of them at the time being undefeated, looking to try to do something not only in the SEC in general, but the SEC West, trying to take down foe Alabama. Ole Miss falls in doing that, and Arkansas falls to the top of the East, which also just happens to be the number 2 team in the country. So 1 and 2 taking down both Arkansas and Ole Miss last week. Both of those heads are about to clash as they take one another on in this game at 12 o'clock. Also at 12 o'clock, Vandy taking on Florida. That one on SEC Network. Florida only a 39-point favorite. Should pretty well cover this game. The thing I want to see in this game is this just a pick-you-up game for Emory Jones? Do you start to see a little bit of KJ Jefferson? Do you start to see a little bit of all right, evidently my mic cut out there, and I don't know when it cut out. So I'm going to pick up here at the 12 o'clock SEC Network game with Vanderbilt and Florida, again, on YouTube. If you're watching me, you were probably just watching me go, and nothing coming out. Evidently my mic decided to come unplugged there. Oh, jeez. What a great show. I mean, it just doesn't get much better than this one, you know. What other SEC show can you watch that is more entertaining than this one? I can name at least 46 of them, so let's move on. Vanderbilt and Florida. Florida, a 39-point favorite, should cover in this one. The question that I have and the curiosity that I have coming into this one is this a pick-me-up game for Emory Jones? Does he get to start in this one and just roll with it as long and as far as he can? Or is this a game where you start to get Anthony Richardson in to get his feet wet and start maybe seeing if that's the direction you want to start going? I don't know what in the world Dan Mullen thinks. He's such a strange guy. I mean, I know I'm a Georgia fan, but I don't know many people in the country who wouldn't look at that guy and go, okay, something's a little different about this guy. And I'm not trying to bash him or talk bad about him, but I've also never known for a coach that wants so much for his team, and you want to be in the SEC championship game and play for the SEC championship game, but yet at the end of the game losing to Kentucky last week, you come out and are smiling and laughing as you shake the hand of Mark Stoops. Maybe he's thinking, okay, hey, he finally got the win in a series that he hadn't got in a while. That's not the mentality or the thought process that you have coming into a game like this. And if it is, your mind's not in the right place. Regardless, Florida's going to roll Vandy in this one. I also kind of want to see, what does Florida give up in this one defensively? Do they give up a couple of scores? Do they blank them like Georgia was able to do? And not to make the comparison there, but it is something to kind of keep an eye on. Is Florida going to be in a situation to absolutely dominate this one, or are they going to let Vandy play a little bit? I wouldn't expect Vandy to be able to play with them, but stranger things have happened. Still that 12 o'clock slate. Look at there. Got a triple header at 12 o'clock between ESPN, SEC Network, and ESPN2. So kind of flipping back and forth between a few of those. And that was the South Carolina at Tennessee game. That one at Tennessee, a 10.5-point favorite there in Neyland Stadium. South Carolina there with Shane Beamer. Having Luke Doty back, that helps a lot. Him having that ability to kind of get loose in the pocket, that little bit of elusiveness to be able to get out and extend drives and extend plays when for the most part they shut down. It is something to kind of keep an eye on there to see what South Carolina can do, especially defensively. Offensively, South Carolina's not that great, but defensively they're not terrible. Now, they're not the best in the country by any means. But after Tennessee's performance last week against Missouri, Tennessee's coming off that high, putting up 62 points against an SEC team. So you're going to have to slow them down, because what we are starting to see is Tennessee is actually starting to get a little bit better. Tennessee and Missouri, my preseason stuff and the stuff I really started to talk about once we started the season was, I think Georgia's at the top of the East. I think Kentucky and Missouri at the time I thought were going to fight Florida for that second spot. Lo and behold, Kentucky does that. But it's like Missouri and Tennessee swap spots in the things that I was talking about, because then you got Florida. Then down below it is now Tennessee, better than Missouri, which I did not expect. But all of a sudden, Tennessee's offense with Hendon Hooker at the helm looks really good, especially those running backs. Those running backs are doing a very good job as well. So I think Tennessee's offense is actually starting to move. Now, the defense not really good at all, but they are starting to move the ball effectively on the offense. So that'll be something to look at in this game. It should be a pretty good game. There's a reason it's at 10.5, and we're going to see, is South Carolina's defense actually able to slow down that Tennessee offense, or are we looking at a Tennessee run away with it again? We're going to see. And we get to see that at 12 o'clock. Pretty much pick me up cupcake game. Actually, let's look at the 3:30. This is a little bit bigger game. You do have number 2 Georgia traveling to Auburn. They're in the 18th ranked spot. Georgia, a 15.5 point favorite coming into this one. Should be a really fun one. They're 3:30 CBS, the main slot for CBS in that prime time slot. I'm excited for this one, not only just because I'm a Georgia fan, you guys know that, but this should be a good one. The South's oldest rivalry coming up here, and Georgia offensively was able to run the ball very, very well last week against Arkansas's defense. Auburn squeaks by Georgia State a couple of weeks ago, and then they finally, for the first time I think since 1999, they beat LSU in Death Valley. So both teams coming off of really good wins, if you want to call the Auburn win a good win over LSU. LSU, not a good team this year. Cody and I both felt very, very low on LSU this year, and both of us felt that they were very highly overrated coming into this season because they were ranked, I think, in the top 15, if I remember correctly, preseason and starting this season. Shouldn't have been there, and we see why now. LSU, only a 3-2 team. But, again, Auburn coming off of a good a win, I should say, and then Georgia coming off of a big win, blanking Arkansas last week. Should be good again. JT Daniels more than likely not starting in this game. I don't expect to see JT Daniels come into this game unless for whatever reason Auburn is hanging around with Georgia in this one. Sorry, I keep having stuff pop up on the screen and it's kind of taking me for a loop. But question in this one, Georgia. They ran the ball effectively last week, but you are now going up against one of the top rush defenses in the country, who has been able to hold teams below 100 yards multiple times in multiple weeks, with exception to a couple of weeks ago against Georgia State where they gave up a heap load. That's really their biggest kink in the season so far. Is Georgia going to be able to move the ball? We just talked about JT Daniels not being in there. Stetson Bennett was the starter last week. We saw Stetson start against UAB and lit the world on fire through the air when UAB decided to say, okay, we're going to play it and load the box and see if we can stop the run. Well, they threw all over them. And now you're coming against an Auburn team who has a pretty decent front four there and is going to try to take that run away from you. The question will be at that point, and this is what I would expect Auburn's game plan to be coming into this one is, stack the box, make Stetson Bennett beat you, because we're going to take the run game away. And if they can take the run game away and you put it in Stetson's hand, then all it takes is making Stetson make the throws. Right now, Georgia is very, very thin at the wideout position. A lot of the guys, even the guys that they had playing in that UAB game, they're not there. There's a few guys that are beat up. They're still trying to get guys back, hoping to get some guys back. But one key component that they did get back last week, who I think will be an impact in this game, is Darnell Washington at the tight end position. He was one of the reasons that Georgia was able to run the ball effectively because of his blocking ability on that offensive line being in the tight end position. He was not targeted as far as any kind of passes go. I look for that to change this week. If they're going to stack the box and try to take the run away, I really do look for that to change, because you did see at times last week Arkansas sat back and decided, okay, well, we'll make them throw against us, and again, Georgia almost rushes the ball for 300 yards. Now over to Auburn. Tank Bigsby seems a little bit beat up in this one. He didn't play nearly as much. I thought that TJ Finley would be the starter last week, and he wasn't. Bo Nix got another chance, and he saved himself. And in some situations, he really had to run around to save himself. And one of probably the biggest plays of the year was him running around and connecting with Jake Fromm's brother, I think Tyler Fromm, there in the end zone for a touchdown. That was Johnny Manziel-esque is all you can say about it, the way that he ran around. I don't know that he's going to be able to do that against Georgia, because when a quarterback seems to get out of the pocket, that defense seems to swarm to that quarterback. And you also have a Jordan Davis in there who can hawk you down, who is unbelievably fast considering his size. I think they clocked him at like 19.6 or 19.8 miles an hour. Dude's a hoss, over 300 pounds, and is running at you like that. Get out of the way when the train's coming through the tracks. But that's going to be the question in this game is, can Bo Nix be the difference? Because I don't expect to see Auburn run the ball very effectively against this Georgia front seven. Don't expect that at all. I also don't expect, now we've seen a little bit better out of Georgia's secondary, I don't expect Georgia to be getting beat deep on the secondary either. So at that point, it's all going to be put in the hands of Bo Nix, and let's see what he can do. If Bo Nix is effective and is able to extend plays and wait and run around long enough to make a play open downfield, you could see things start to go Auburn's way in certain situations. But for the most part, I don't know. That defense of Georgia is, and I'm not just saying this being biased, but the defense of Georgia truly is, and you can ask anybody in the country, is not only the best we've seen under Kirby Smart, but is also probably the best we've seen since that last run at a national championship. That was 40 years ago. It's been a long time. Georgia's due. They've got the defense to do it. Can they back it up with the offense? We're going to see. Jumping down to that 4 o'clock game at SEC Network, North Texas and Missouri. Shouldn't be much to this. Connor Bazelak should be able to throw the ball left and right all that he wants to against a 1-3 North Texas. Coming to a Missouri, only a 19-point favorite coming in that. I say only. I mean, you look at a Florida who's a 39-point favorite over Vandy. It's the only reason I say it like that. Missouri should absolutely roll in this one. Should not have any issues coming in this one. 2 other big games in the SEC. 7:30, they're on the SEC Network. You get LSU traveling to Kentucky. This is going to be a good one. Kentucky's a 3-point favorite into this one, but Kentucky cannot have the hangover of beating Florida last week. You can't come into this one riding on a high horse, get your head all big, and think that you're going to win the SEC East without getting to that possibility, because you still have games to play. You got LSU this week. You got Georgia next week. That's going to be the deciding factor, but you can fall right here against LSU and ruin your entire season, because first on your list should be, all right, we've got to win the East, then we got to win the SEC, then we can talk about a playoff, then we can talk about getting to national championship. Right now, you got to get through your schedule. It's not as easy for you. You are 5-0 at this point. You've got a good quarterback there in Will Levis. He can make it happen. You got a good running back. You got good wideouts as well. The question is going to be defensively, can you slow down LSU with Max Johnson if Max Johnson can do the things he's done in the past? I do believe LSU's got a key wide receiver that is out, as well as Derek Stingley Jr. He's out for the rest of the season from the last I saw. So I still expect Kentucky to be very successful in this, but this is a game that Kentucky could very well come in riding on that high horse and just fall when they shouldn't. We've seen it in the past, not only with Kentucky, with many teams that are riding on a high horse, that come into a game that they should absolutely dominate, and for whatever, they just fall to the wayside. The good thing is this is at 7:30. If this was a 12 o'clock kick, I'd be really, really nervous for Kentucky just because it's earlier. And those early kicks, it's just a lot harder to wake up for. Now, it can happen. We've seen it in the past that teams also are completely ready for that. We saw it last week with Georgia. Georgia came into that 12 o'clock ready to play and absolutely dominated Arkansas when that time came. LSU, Max Johnson has to be the one, because that defense of LSU is not good. And you take your key player on defense and Derek Stingley Jr., and he's gone, that defense is wide open for Kentucky to do just about whatever they want on this one. I'm surprised that line hadn't changed from 3 with some of those injuries, because I do think that it's worth more. But it's not up to me to do that. So Kentucky, you got to be prepared for this game. And if you can be prepared, you can be 6-0 going up against Georgia next week when you have to travel to Athens. Let's jump down to the last game of the night at 8 o'clock on CBS, Alabama, Texas A&M. A game that preseason looked to be the game of the year coming up in the SEC West, at least, between these two teams. I know preseason I said this, and every bit of it can now be wiped off the board after last week. I said, hey, you could have Alabama, Ole Miss, and Texas A&M tied for first. Let me go ahead and throw that out the door, because Ole Miss just got beat by Alabama. Texas A&M is not going to beat Alabama, and even if they do, it doesn't matter now because they've lost 2 games. So that's not happening. That's no longer here. That's way in the wayside, and Alabama's an 18-point favorite coming into this game and is probably going to cover that, because Texas A&M's defense has looked good, but it started to struggle last week against Mississippi State. Without Haynes King there at quarterback, your offense is not going to move the ball. You have great running backs, great wideouts. but you don't have the quarterback to be able to move the ball and control and drive that offense. That's the unfortunate thing for Texas A&M coming into this one, because Alabama, that offense is moving. That defense is looking a lot better than it did last year. And this is going to be another one of those where a team is absolutely going to get rolled coming to this one. I don't care if it's at the 12th man. I thought that this was going to be a much better game. And after the way that Texas A&M has played this season, unfortunately, it's not looking like that at all. And I hate it for Texas A&M because I was really looking forward to this being a fun and exciting game coming up. Now that we've talked about it, I'm going to actually skip around a little bit. What I want to do is I'm going to go ahead and put up the weekly picks that I've got pulled up for both of us. Let me see if I can get this little number running right here. Let's see. Yeah. Had to make sure I hit the right button here. All right. Pulling up our weekly picks here. I had to put the headphones back on so that way I could see it here. There you go. Here we go. We got Arkansas, Ole Miss. Me and Cody both going with Ole Miss. I did take Ole Miss in this one, minus that 5.5. I think they'll cover that. Arkansas, again, I think that's just because I don't think KJ Jefferson is prepared for this game after taking that injury against Texas A&M. Vandy, Florida, not much to talk about there. Florida for both of us. Kind of surprised Cody's going to take South Carolina in this Tennessee-South Carolina game. I know that defense of South Carolina looks pretty good, but that offense is atrocious. I've got Tennessee minus that 10.5. I think they covered that. And again, Cody going with South Carolina. All the other picks in the game, we are exactly the same. Georgia over Auburn, Missouri over North Texas, Kentucky over LSU. Kind of surprised he didn't go with LSU there, but that one is a tight one. Both of us going Kentucky. Both of us going Alabama over Texas A&M in this one as well. Now, let me get myself pulled back up here on the screen, if I can remember how I did it. All right, here we go. There we go. Finally, get it pulled back up here. It's kind of hard to remember exactly how you do things every time because I've done it so much now that it's a little bit difficult to remember. All right, now let's jump into some of the games that are around the country. Again, 24-0 Coastal Carolina up on Arkansas State at the half. They should continue to roll in this one. Friday, not really much happening. Stanford, Arizona State. Arizona State a 13-point favorite, but watch out. Stanford's not a bad team. They are 3-2 and could come in and ruin Arizona State's season coming into this one. 4-0 and 2-0 in the Pac-12. Then, Saturday, got some big ones. I'm kind of going to pinpoint those bigger games on the week instead of diving too deep into some of the other stuff that we've got going on. Start at 12 o'clock ABC. The Red River rivalry in the Cotton Bowl there in Dallas, Texas. Number 6, Oklahoma, taking on number 21, Texas. Oklahoma, 3-point favorite. I don't know about that one. Texas has started to actually look really good. They've started to get better and better as the season's progressed. Didn't look all that great starting things off, especially after that Arkansas loss, but we see what Arkansas is so far through the season. Oklahoma, again, 3-point favorite, 63.5 the over/under. I can very well see Texas coming into this one and ruining Oklahoma's chance at the college football playoff this year for the first time in a little while. Did they make it last year? I don't know. I can't even remember that far back. Don't even remember what I ate for supper a couple hours ago. But anyways, should be a good one. 4-1 Texas, 5-0 Oklahoma, both 2-0 in the Big 12. Could also decide who gets to play for that Big 12 championship game. And it's also kind of fun because obviously these two teams are supposed to be coming to the SEC here soon. 12 o'clock also on Fox, you got 4-1 Maryland traveling to number 7 Ohio State. Ohio State a 21-point favorite. I don't know how Maryland is going to cover that 21. The only reason Maryland looked as bad as they did against Iowa last week is because Talia Tagovailoa threw 5 interceptions in the first half of that game. You can't do that. You can't win a game. You can't keep it close if you do that, especially against a top 5 team in the country. I expect Maryland to keep that one a lot closer. Could also pull the upset in this one. That would be awesome to see Ohio State take their second loss of the season because they are slowly but surely starting to creep up into that top 5 position again, and then the talks of the playoff again. And I'm just tired of it. And that's also because of this. You got number 4 and number 3, Penn State and Iowa, taking on one another at 4 o'clock on Fox. Both undefeated in the Big Ten, both undefeated 5-0. Coming to this one is at Kinnick. Iowa is a 1.5-point favorite in this one. This is going to be a really good game. I wouldn't put any money on this game just because that 1.5 point line. I mean, I don't know how this is going to go. I think Iowa's defense is good, very good, but I also think Penn State's defense isn't all that bad. Iowa's Iowa's offense is actually a little bit better than Penn State's in my opinion. Could be wrong about that. We're going to see, obviously, in this game, but I don't want to have anything to do with it. Should be a really good one. But when this happens, the number 5, 6, and 7 team have that opportunity to jump up in this game. One of the other ones, number 11, Michigan State at Rutgers. Watch out, because I still think Rutgers is a good team and could come in here and upset Michigan State in this one. Boise, BYU. Boise is just not all that great this year. BYU, slowly but surely in the top 10 at 5-0. Michigan, Nebraska, don't sleep on that one. Michigan only a 3-point favorite against a 3-3 Nebraska. Michigan undefeated or ranked 9th in the country. That one could be a good one too. Nebraska has shown signs of life this season. And check this one out. This line has changed a lot since the last time I saw it. Number 14, 4-1 Notre Dame traveling to Blacksburg, Virginia to take on Virginia Tech 3-1. The line is even. Not even a spread on it. That's crazy. I don't think I've seen an even line in a long time. Obviously, the closest that comes to it this week is that Iowa and Penn State game at 1.5, but the line is even. Over-under that was 47, and I get it because playing in Virginia Tech, that's just a whole nother ball game. North Carolina knows a thing or two about that after going and losing there to start the season. You could see Notre Dame take their second loss in this game. That's really going to be the biggest ones around the country that I was looking at that I think I want to dive too deep into. Yeah, I mean, one other kind of crazy thing is after this week's games, it's really hard to believe, but we are 12 of the 14 SEC teams will be halfway through the season. We're already hitting that halfway point of the season already. It's flying by. It's going much too fast. We needed to slow down just a little bit. Because before you know it, it's going to be here and over. We're going to blink and it's going to be Christmas. We're going to blink again and the national championship game is going to be in the process of happening. I do think there's a really good chance you could have a couple of SEC teams in that. I still believe that. Even if it is just Georgia and Alabama, because right now Georgia and Alabama are above and beyond the rest of the country in all aspects, offensively, defensively. Now, some of the rankings on those two positions not necessarily so much, doesn't necessarily show that, but look at the games. Georgia struggled against a Clemson team that is no longer any good. Again, I attribute that to Georgia breaking Clemson, but again, that's just my opinion. But since then, they've been dominant. Defensively, ain't lit. The last two games, Georgia has outscored their opponent 99-0. 2 weeks straight of a shutout game against SEC opponents. Against the SEC opponents being back-to-back shutouts. The last time that happened is like 1980. Last time it happened against two just teams, I think it was like 2002 or 12, something like that. Some kind of strange stat like that. But I could definitely see Alabama and Georgia getting into that. If Alabama and Georgia meet each other at 12-0 records on December 4th in that SEC championship game, and it's a close game, I don't see why you don't let both teams in. The thing then is going to be, all right, if it stays the same, 1 Alabama, 2 Georgia, and they play in the SEC championship game, you can't move whoever loses down to that 4 spot and have an immediate replay of that game, if that makes sense, in the first round of the playoffs. I don't think you can do that, but I do think if that happens, whoever loses maybe falls to that 3 spot. You keep them in the 3 spots, that way they're not having to immediately play each other again in the first round of the playoffs. Again, we got to get there. We got a long way to go. Obviously, I just said we're halfway through the season, so there's still plenty of ball to be played to see if that's even a possibility. But that would be kind of neat to see, because there is the possibility that you get that repeat in the national championship game if that happens. The odds of us getting 3 in at this point, not looking all that great. The Pac-12 is kind of shot out at this point. Big 12 still has an opportunity maybe with Oklahoma there. ACC, I mean, unless you're preying on Wake, I just don't foresee that happening for the ACC this year. Let's see, Pac-12, I already talked about that. Big 10 maybe. Maybe Ohio State works their way back. Might be the year for Cincy. Might be the first year that Cincinnati's got the opportunity to truly get in there in the college football playoffs. I mean, they're right there on the outside looking in. We'll have to see where we get once we get to the end of the season for that. But hard to believe we're right there. I did look. Looks like the first round of college football playoff rankings are going to come out next week, so we get to look forward to that as we move forward. All right, let's get everything wrapped up here. That is actually not the button I meant to click, but I'll click this one. There we go. All right, looking forward to it. Week 5 games were really good. We've got some really good matchups coming up here in Week 6, and we will check in with you guys on Sunday to wrap everything up and review all of the games that just happened this week. Appreciate you guys listening, and we will check out with you guys later on.